So yeah, so this is it. This is the exhibition. This is me. Also, I wanted to do it more like a Q&A, so I'm more than happy to answer questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Which was the first piece in this collection that you got, and how this overarching collection and the whole concept behind the collection, the artworks that you got? Did you already have sort of this idea of what was happening in the world in mind, or did you get one artwork and then that provided a little bit more context to the next one and the next one, and then eventually you had this full story? How did it start? So what was the first artwork, and how did that snowball into this entire dialogue?
So for those ones that are on Instagram, because you cannot hear the other sound, got a question here asking which was the first work that I of this exhibition, and how I came across with the content. The first work that I got is the Lu Brothers. This work. This was the first work that I got from the collection. And at that time, I was quite aware of there was an artistic movement called cynical realism that actually crashed at that, because there was this huge hype, and then everybody started offloading it, and then I decided to get it because I found that historically it's quite relevant. So I got it understanding that the work was historically relevant. Okay, not the work, like the movement, right? Like, because it's the openness of China. China, when really brought down the walls and decided to embrace the West, if you can call it that way, right? And who led which is actually described quite well with the Coca-Cola cans. So the concept was there. And then I think I have acquired this work over a period of about 6 or 7 years. And when I contextualized the show was probably 6 months ago, when we started experimenting, when I was discussing with you guys about doing it a show. And I realized, like, yeah, I have a collection of works. I have the Lu Brothers, the openness of China. I have this work from Mac, which is extremely relevant in terms of technology. I have the work from Estela, which is the China in the early 2000s. And certainly the Lu Xi with the education, which is like growing up as a, and then that idea start forming up. Like, okay, I think there's a story. There's a story here. There's a story. There's a contemporary story. And then I decided one day, like, okay, I think, okay, let me do like about. Then when I started talking to you, to the guys from ArtGateVR, okay, how many works can I show? I want to tell a story, and then I decided to write it down. And then I put the works together in a piece of on a computer, put in the works, and then eventually, little by little, the story started kind of like coming up. The context of all these works together start coming up. I got a question here for those ones that are on Instagram, asking like what made me become a collector. If that is correct, I think there was, for me, was a drive. I always had an impulse to appreciate. I mean, I always had an attraction for, I would say beautiful things, or things that I found beautiful. I mean, even like a magazine or a poster, I always kind of like step twice, and I look at something. And since kid, I remember like my first encounter with art was at home. My mom used to have this very thick Bible, like one of those old, huge, and which has all these the Italian, all the classical paintings. I don't know if anybody's familiar, but it had the Fra Angelicos and all the Italian, the Tintorettos, all these all the different Italian classic religious art and so on. And it was a painting, in fact, by Isabel Prado. It was a work by, there were two works in that Bible, which was the Fra Angelico, the one that is, I think is the blue, the one with the blue veil, which is in the Prado Museum. And the other one, obviously, because when you go into the last book, which is the Book of Revelations, I think it's called. I'm not religious, so please correct me. I don't want to offend anybody. I think it's the Book of Revelations. Of course, the work that you see pretty much in all the Bibles is the Garden of Earthly Delights, which is also in the Prado. And especially those two works, I think the technique of Fra Angelico and the imagination of the emboss is what really got me. Like really, I felt that something woke on me, and I was about probably like 6 or 7 years old. And over time, I was always very sensitive. I never painted. I was awful. I mean, but I always had that appreciation for color and stopping and look. That I always found that I was like pretty. And when I went to university, I was kind of like a geek. I was always going to museums all the time, and my friends were like, "What the hell are you doing?" And because for me, I found it so enriching when you see a work. For me, like the reason, for example, I tell you the reason why I call the collection divide by zero, because there's always when you're seeing a work and understanding that at one moment that work was just a black canvas, a white canvas, sorry, and there was that singular moment, that is split second, where the artist goes like, "That's it. I want to do this." That infinite singular moment, it's what I'm after. I want to understand what drove the artist to go like this, to snap and go like this. But that was the essence. That over time I grew up always having that appreciation for art, appreciating that instant of creativity. And that grew up. I was really into cinema especially when I was in university. I watched tons of cinema, big movies, black and white, all sorts of films. I read extensively the big books, all the Russian writers, because I found that beauty. Garcia Marquez, for example, with the magical realism. And for me, it was always that drive of creation, having the capacity to create. Or Oscar Wilde is another writer that I found it fascinating. The capacity to create these beautiful things out of nothing.